I take your point on pesticides and things, but I think we might leave that until the later report in October because it needs consideration by the grounds maintenance people, and we really need to have them reporting back to us on that. And equally, I'm not sure that air management is appropriate in this report, though I know it's one of your, something you're always bringing up, and we do appreciate it, and we know that, but whether it's got a place in this report, I'm not sure. Councillor Hawkins, did I see your hand? Sorry, I was going to bring in Councillor Baldry, and then I'll bring in Councillor Hawkins.
Well, thank you. I don't think either has got an answer to the question I raised on 5.1. Are we going to amend it to say at least 10%, and are we going to amend it to make it clear we are doing a proper consultation and not prejudging? This has been the only way in which we've accepted the 10%.
I do think you've got a good point there. So can we amend paragraph 5.1 to a politically binding target of at least 10% net increase, and possibly taking out the second sentence.
I'm happy with that.
Yep. So.
Is Mr. Button of not see with the first bit?
I think it's possible to remove it, but I don't think.
Well, if we put a realistic way rather than the only realistic way, that would that be all right? Right. Mr. White, could we make that amendment then, please, to the report?
I'll just add go back to the conversation we had earlier in the meeting about grounds maintenance, which was covered at paragraph 2.8 and 2.9. As I said earlier, I am disappointed we have not progressed that to a paper with the executive. I was very excited about when we were talking about it, and we had a conversation with the South Somerset officers, and we produced a major report, and I was hoping sooner rather than later we would be able to go forward with something that might create a profit for this council by going out and bringing in outside work. So I just put that on the record. The other, relating to the paper in general, can we please make sure that there was a suggestion in earlier drafts that this was going to be a top-down position? Because it will not work if it becomes that. Cutting grass or leaving it grow wild and so on is very controversial, and I hope we can be seen that when we go forward, it is with the agreement of local communities, town and parish councils, and that this is not cut down, it's built up from the bottom, and the degree to which we, in quotes, leave an area scruffy or we manicure it will be in consultation. As I said in this paper, and I hope it is a genuine consultation. And can I then just deal with one point in detail, turning to the pictures at paragraph 3.3. I very much like the picture on the left, because that explains to the public why the wildflowers are growing and it is not as probably what is done manicure. The picture on the right is about 100 metres from where I live. I don't like it. It has been done by a well-meaning local group who have convinced our grounds maintenance team to allow this area to go into grassland. If you look at the picture, the grass has grown significantly more since this photograph was taken. Almost no wildflowers in sight, and that's because they didn't actually sow any wildflower seeds. And all over the area, they have got these blue hearts on display. I had to ask what the blue heart meant, and I was told it was in order to allow wildlife and so on. I thought the blue heart was a symbol for the National Health Service at the moment. I don't think, what the point I'm trying to make, Leader, is wherever we do these sort of things, let's do it properly, and let's do it with proper notices, telling the public what it's all about, such as the one on the left-hand photograph, and we properly disclose as to what the purpose of it all is. I'm happy with the consultation. I'm going to vote in favour of it, but I just want to make sure it is a genuine consultation and not officers imposing on the public what they think is good for them.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. I must say I echo your sentiment. Mr. White, could I ask that we look at the forward plan and ask officers that they look at bringing back a grounds maintenance contract report as we had envisaged originally this was going to be. Now, it may be that it needs to come back as a separate report to this, but could it be at the same time as we get the consultation results? And could somebody look into the pesticide and glyphosate situation so that we can report on that in that report, please? Is that all right? Does that cover everybody's right? All right then. Yes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Birch. Yeah. Oh, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Hawkins, forgive me.
Thank you very much, Keith. I think this is really important. It's a way we've obviously got to go. We have to ensure that the communities decide on how they want the areas which Southampton Council are responsible for. Some areas will, some towns, and I've got certain people in our area who will want it beautifully manicured, and then we're going to have other people who want it to be more natural. I'm personally for the ones that want it to be more natural. That is far better for the environment, it's far better for our towns, but I think we have to a certain extent, educate. But the communities, like Councillor Baldry has said, the communities must decide on what they want and how we consult with them, and actually consult them with meaning, but we just don't consult for the tick box exercise. Glyphosate, I was told in my patch that we don't use it anymore.
I don't think we do, but
That's what I was told, because
I'd like to see it in a report.
I had residents who were very concerned about it, and to my knowledge, we don't use it. I checked that up with our officers, and I just want, again, what the leader says, we just need clarification, because we don't want to use those dreadful things any longer, but they have to be stopped. The 10%, yes, I think we need to try and aim better, trying to aim more, but that again is up to the communities. Signage, yes, the signage has got to be right, so that when we explain to people why it's gone wild or why it's gone natural, why we're doing it. So that I think these pardon the weeds is a great idea, but if we do it, we need to make certain everywhere is done. I was told by Dartmouth Green Partnership that if you want natural flowers in the verges, etc., you have to keep on replanting it every year, that you have to keep reseeding it.
No, they're perennials, a lot of them.
That's fine, okay, but that's what I was told by Dartmouth Green Partnership. But yeah, fully support this. If we're going to go any further into contracts, I would have to declare an interest, because I'm a member of Kingsway Parish Council and we have a contract with Southampton at the present moment.
All right, we'll note that for future reference. Councillor Hallward.
Yeah, just to say that we are conscious of the importance of exercise, fresh air, and organised sport, and so there is no intention whatsoever in not maintaining our sports pitches and our areas where they're building the playing. They will be maintained to the same kind of standard that they are now, to encourage people to be enjoying exercise and stuff like that. That will limit, maybe, just the kind of games we can have. But at the same time, we know that the health of our residents is vitally important.
Thank you, Councillor Holloway. Right, so I've got Councillor Birch down the other end with his hand up. Yes.
Thank you. Item 2 of the recommendation deals with the matter of consultation. I think once the group throughout the district that needs to be consulted are those residents associations who have the responsibility for the ground and maintenance of the common areas in developments across the district. I mean that they've all arisen as a result of Section 106 through development. And those
Thank you, Councillor Birch. That's a good point. This is initially only to do with works on council land, but I think the point you make is very valid, and so we might ask for the consultation to be tweaked accordingly. Mr. White, could you make a note of that to pass on to comms, please? Thank you very much. Councillor Long.
Thank you. I'm pleased to see this. I think, one thing that I was going to say is grass, obviously, managing to develop our plan meadows, and that takes time. Once it's done, they tend to sort of look after themselves, but obviously, to remove anything. And what we've got to do is make sure that we don't just have one species grass, which don't become rampant. I think it's the that council board we've been talking about. But I would like to see this work where it is just talking about community grass, where there are hedgerows, there are trees, and we should be looking at where we have hedgerows to be improving them, even potentially developing or expanding hedgerows, because they are equally important as wildflower for biodiversity. And I think also looking to develop areas where we can possibly include flowering trees, fruit trees, orchards, elements like that. So I'd like to see it focuses almost completely on grassland, community grassland, which I think is very important to move forward. But there are other aspects that we can do on land managed by our own district council to improve areas rather than just
Okay, thank you, Councillor Long. Can I ask officers to consider that when you come back with the further report, please, on this? Thank you. Right. Do we have any further questions? Can't see anybody else's hand up. So, Councillor Holway, would you like to propose the recommendations and we'll vote on them? I think they've been seconded, haven't they? So we'll move to the vote. Everybody in favour? Right, thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is item 9, the annual report, or the draft annual report, because yes. So this is, you will have the, you see the draft annual report at Appendix A, and you'll notice that it's somewhat different from ones you've seen in the past. This is due to pressure on officer time developing the corporate strategy and other challenges that have been faced due to the pandemic. So it's a lot shorter than usual this year, but in many ways becomes a much more distilled and accessible document showing what the council has achieved over the past year. All this is in spite of everyone working from home and the whole workload of the council being disrupted by the demands of the pandemic has put upon us and our residents and the business community. Inevitably, in a document of this length, not everything is listed, but the essentials are here. In many ways, it's probably a more readable format than formerly, and as such, I expect it will be more easily accessible to our residents than formerly. Now, I'll take questions. Are there any questions from the executive? I can see Councillor Hodgson's got a hand up, but I'll take the executive first. No questions? Okay, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Baldry.
I've got an idea. I was going to not put it off, make a comment when we get into the debate. We can't talk about the impression of that.
Right, fair enough. Mr. Hawke, can that be noted, please? And could you add something into the annual report on that? It'll be about the round changes because the implementation of the recycling hadn't actually happened last year, but yes. But it wasn't actually commenced, was it, until April? They were going to commence, but then they put it back a couple of weeks, didn't they, initially, I think? Yes.
So, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
leave it as the round changes, because the round changes is correct.
Okay. Right. Oh, yes, Councillor Abbott. Sorry, I can see your arm. It's not your face.
Point of clarification, on the pie chart on page 74, the page numbers on the left, side of the sheet rather than the bottom of it, it says Southampton District Council has an 80% share. And it's on the 9%.
That could be because the county council increases its take much faster than we're able to. But Mrs. Buckle will confirm that. I know she's the master of the figures, or mistress of the figures. Right. So, is that the Councillor Birch's arm now?
Yes, that's on the page 2020, 2021 numbers. Could I suggest that the item at the bottom which says 31 councillors' computers repurposed to enable home education, could I suggest that be reworded? Maybe interpreted that our computers have been repurposed to give us home education. I can see people having fun on social media by looking at that. So, makes sense.
Very good point, Councillor Birch. I hadn't actually spotted the double meaning to that, but well spotted. Yeah, okay. Has anybody else seen any canards in it? No? Right, well, that's good. I'm sure that wasn't intended, Mr. Hawke, was it? Right. So I'll move the recommendation at the top of the report that the progress of the council be noted. Any amendments being suggested prior to publishing? Well, I think we've done that. Do we have any further suggestions? Because this doesn't go to council, this just goes straight out after this. So if everybody's happy with it, I'll propose those recommendations. Everybody in favour? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, good. The next item is item 10, Public Space Protection Order. Councillor Hawkins, this is your item.
All right, thank you, Leader. We've all seen the recommendations in the report in front of us. First of all, I'd just like to thank Louisa Daly for coming back today. She did leave our employment at the beginning of this week, and after working, I think, with Southampton District Council and West Devon for the last 11 years. So I would just like to thank Louisa very much for coming back to help this morning, and wish her every success in her new career working with the NHS. So I'd just like to say that. In January 2018, 8 public space protection orders for alcohol were introduced in the towns in the South Hams. These towns were Dartmouth, Ivybridge, Kingsbridge, Modbury, Salcombe, South Kent, Totnes and Woolwell. These orders expired in January 2021. Public spaces protection orders introduced in 2014 under the Anti-Social Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act of 2014 sit amongst a broad range of powers and tools to help tackle antisocial behaviour locally. PSPOs are aimed to ensure public spaces can be enjoyed free from antisocial behaviour. They are not about stopping the responsible use of the nighttime economy or preventing young people from seeing their friends, but they do provide councils with another instrument to help deal with persistent issues that are damaging their communities. A PSPO is not a drinking ban. Indeed, a PSPO area and an individual can drink alcohol in a calm manner. An order would be breached if a person was intoxicated, drinking and causing antisocial behaviour, and refused to stop drinking when required to do so by an officer. The fine for a breach of this order is £100. In autumn 2020, the Specialist for Community Safety began working with the local policing teams in the South Hams to review the existing areas which had a PSPO and to understand if any additional areas had evidence to support such an order. The policing teams in the South Hams agreed that there should be no additional areas included due to the lack of evidence and need. I need to emphasise these orders are put in on evidence by the police. The 8 towns previously mentioned were then reviewed, and the alcohol-related crime data was sought from police and carefully looked at. A 30-day consultation was held from November 16th to the 18th of December, which was widely publicised in each of the towns, in the local media, and elected members were also directly contacted about the proposals. All parish councils and town councils that were affected were contacted. In January, the information and responses from the public consultations, the police data and the police neighbourhood statement were collated, and a report was written recommending that 5 of the original 8 towns should be considered for a new PSPO. Also, that for the remaining 3 towns, there was not enough evidence to meet the legal test as laid out in the report, and that Devon and Cornwall Police and the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner as statutory consultees do not support putting a PSPO into those areas. Therefore, in summary, the report recommends that South Hams District Council elected members agree the PSPOs for Dartmouth, Ivybridge, Kingsbridge, Salcombe and Totnes. None of the existing areas before January 2021 have been changed at all. They are exactly the same as they were previously. Elected members of these areas have been made aware of the recommendations. The positive news is that the remaining 3 areas, which won't be in the new PSPOs, Modbury, South Brent and Woolwell, are reported as low crime areas by way of alcohol-related ASPB. Therefore, there is little need or jurisdiction for the extra legislation to be reintroduced into these areas. Elected members in these areas have also been made aware of this, and I ensured that Louisa contacted the 3 members where the changes were being proposed, were contacted in May. I think it's the 23rd of May, by a separate email identifying this. Going forward, if any town experiences a surge in alcohol-related ASPB, PSPB, something like that, can be considered in the future. This does not preclude any future activity, and if the crime or the antisocial behaviour increases, this can be put back in with consultation with the police and with local members' support. I just want to emphasise that all parishes were notified and all the local members were contacted. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Members of the Executive, do you have any questions on this? Councillor Baldry?
No, it's a comment.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a question for Councillor Hawkins or Louisa Daly, please, about the different presentation of the incidents in the various towns. Now, I guess that's the way the police have reported them. But in the case of South Brent, there seem to be a number of incidents reported. I mean, 26 and 32, that's nearly 60. That's 58 incidents, which is considerably more than Salcombe, for instance, that but then he has about sort of 24, 25 or something. And I'm just wondering how it is that you determine, one way or the other, whether a PSPO is necessary or not.
So it has to meet the legal test, so there are legal tests that are shown in the report. And we took comments from the meeting. So, information students want their
Well, is it that then there's a different policing team for Kingsbridge and Salcombe than there is for South Brent and Totnes? Right, so how come then the policing team in South Brent, for South Brent, makes a different judgment on more incidents than have been reported in Salcombe?
I think it's around the general feel of the town and the reporting. The South Brent team are linked to the Ivybridge team, the reporting team. And I should say, the inspector for Southampton sent a apology to that she fully understood and was in agreement with the report. I can't speak for separate charges, I'm afraid, the team people. I can only say that the inspector's been the overall report.
Right, okay. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Hodgson.
The maps were taken from the previous year, so none of the maps have been changed, but as you say, it was an out of consultation, and we looked to consider any areas that were raised, that area wasn't raised. Also, it might be that part of experience around the behaviour, but is it out of the expenses to be looking at us doing that, and what we need to look for it? I would say not, because we would raise that. And again, it's something that we can look to add on in the future if that is it.
Right. Now, Councillor Hawkins, would you like to propose?
You've
There are
got two
a
more
couple-
questions.
Oh, sorry. Beg your pardon, Councillor Abbott. Hello.
My question's about consistency between the mapping and the document. First of all, Allwell and South Brent and Mulberry are not to be included, but there are still maps of these areas within the document. And then for Ivybridge, the maps show that the recreation areas, but not the streets, whereas for Dartmouth and Totnes, the streets are shown. So I'm just trying to understand whether you want to choose from them. It does say on page that the list of streets to be included in the order, map of the area shown in the appendix, list of the streets and one extent there for the order is marked as
Okay, could you comment on that, please, Ms. Daly?
Could I perhaps comment on
Yeah,
that?
you can, Councillor Hawkins. Yes, if you can answer it, please do.
It could be that the streets that aren't being included in Ivybridge is because you don't have public houses on those streets, whereas by far the majority, I don't obviously know all your streets, I'm sorry, I should know better, but in Dartmouth most of the streets have public houses or restaurants, etc., that are serving alcohol, and that could be the problem, might be the difference. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Long.
Councillor Long, sorry, can't see you at all.
Question, is signage required in these areas? Because I have to say that the signage that we done was just a reference to the dump stop briefly. But if you read some of the old signage around, it gives the impression that you're not allowed to drink. And that's obviously a huge outlet in certain areas. So the question for me is whether there is a requirement, because I would tend to think small signs would put up with the bonus that we're going to do, and we would do more signs dotted around the area. But the question is if there are to be signs, do they actually be simpler than the sort of very formal, this is the law stating it, and it's not the obvious to people. So I think that something that says it more simply, I think would bring the point across.
I think it would be unchecked, but I think
Yeah.
the legal obligations that we have to reflect effectively in the signage. So if not, then
Yes, I think some of the confusion must arise because previously you weren't allowed to drink in certain areas. Now you are, as long as you're behaving. So, no. Really? Okay, all right. Thank you. But yeah, it does. The maps do seem to vary in consistency between the different areas. So I think it's a good point. Right. Councillor Hodgson, do you want to come back?
yes, clear legislation, although it can cover 18, it needs to have separate legislation around underage drinking, so we wouldn't put in the SPO specifically for underage drinking.
And before we finish on the questions, could I just ask one further question? And that is, at the same time as the local members were consulted, were parish councils consulted? Because there seems to be some equivalence on this too.
Yes, 7th November, email and file from
All right, thank you very much for that confirmation. Right. So, no, I'm going to move. I'm going to ask Councillor Hawkins to move the recommendations.
Right, if I could perhaps move the recommendations on item 1, but can I suggest we go to Ivybridge B first, and I move the recommendation on Ivybridge.
Oh, hang on, you just move. Can we just move them?
Oh, sorry.
Let's just move them, and then we'll have comments, and then we'll go into the vote, which we've got to do separately. Yes, quite right. So, would you like to move them? Please?
I'd like to move the recommendations 1 and 2.
Right. Thank you very much. Seconder? Yeah. Well, I'll second them if nobody else is going to. Right. Okay. Okay. Right. So now we can move into the comments. Well, debate. Yes. Yes. Please make a comment. Or debate. Yeah.
Well, certainly Modbury and Woolwise think the same in South Brent. People are not happy that they are being excluded. And certainly had a report from Modbury Town Council this week that they have discussed it and they're not happy that they're going to be excluded from this order. And the reason they say that is just because there haven't been many cases, and already the review have proved that South Brent have more fair cases than Salford. Modbury and Woolworth are certainly saying, because just because there haven't been many cases doesn't mean you have to drop the order, because it proves that the order is working, that it is, and people are aware of the order and they're complying with it, and that is their argument. And I absolutely agree with the three towns of Modbury, South Brent and Walwell that they should be left included in the order. Would Councillor Hawkins like to
Well, I think
accept an amendment?
I think Louisa Daly would like to say something, please.
All orders expired in January, Councillor. So currently there are no PSQs for alcohol and dangerous behaviour in the district.
Yeah, but
I think, could I come?
that is a cop-out, because that we haven't got an order now. We should have an order in place. It shouldn't have been allowed to run out and a new order not being put in place. That's not answered the question or the comments that I made. Are you willing to accept an amendment that we include Modbury, South Brent and Walwell in the new order?
Well, it's not up to Mrs. Daly to accept an amendment.
Councillor Hawkins that question.
All right. Okay, well, can we just know whether that's legally possible first?
It would have to be a legal test, and the evidence that we had in the case is not the evidence for those three areas. Did not meet the legal test, hence the recommendation not to propose on those three areas.
But with South Brent, we've already proved that there is a greater need in South Brent than in Salcombe. And
Can I come in?
Yeah, Councillor Hawkins.
I mean, I think if the executive feel that we should go back out to consultation for Modbury, South Brent and Walwell, then obviously we should and could. But we have to go on with what are the evidence, and I'm looking at Louisa for her to say yes. We have to go on what the evidence is and what the police will, and what the police will support. And the police are saying in those three towns that they do not want the PSPO putting back in. We should go on with what the police are saying. But I do sort of understand what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I very much do understand, and whilst I seconded it so that we could move into the debate, because otherwise we couldn't. Councillor Baldry.
I'm very nervous about this and the evidence that's coming up in questions, not least from Modbury, South Brent and the inconsistencies. I'm supporting what Councillor Babcock said, but I want to propose a amendment which I think might move us forward, which is that the recommendation is that the orders as they existed in January are allowed to continue until a further report comes back to this council.
Well, I don't think we can do that because they've already expired.
They've already expired.
They've already expired, so I think...
The orders that existed in January are reintroduced with the same number of places.
But I don't think we can do that either. I think what we could do today is to approve the 5 A to E, but say that we want to make further investigations about the other 3 and possibly bring back a later report when we've sorted it out. Because I think it's important that we get the orders in place. And I don't know why they expired, but I guess it was something to do with the pandemic that they expired before they should have, before we had them in place, the replacements in place.
This report was ready to go to executive in January, February, but for some unknown reason, and I don't know why, it didn't come here. So that is why it's now here. That's what I understand. But well, that's what Louisa has told me. The recommendation, the report was ready.
Right. So,
But Lilo, I think we also looked at the other inconsistencies that are identified by Councillor Hodgson and Councillor Abbott. I'm very nervous about the way this is presented.
right, okay. I am eager to get the orders in place before the summer, particularly for Kingsbridge, Dartmouth and Salcombe. But I think with the proviso that we review all the maps and we definitely review the position on Modbury, South Brent and Woolwell. Mr White, am I dreaming, or do you have a submission from Councillor Hopwood? Well, would you like to read it out so that we can hear what Councillor Hopwood's got to say?
This is a statement from Councillor Hopwood to the Centre Apologies to this morning's executive. I am disappointed in the report as far as Woolwell is concerned. Woolwell is a large housing estate of 1,300 homes with a high proportion of young families. There are no real facilities in the area to occupy teenagers, and lots of young people come from outside the area to congregate for the evening, especially during long summer evenings. This is also when alcohol is consumed, leading to antisocial behaviour. There is a lack of police presence in the area, with no control from Ivybridge, which makes no sense as Woolwell is on the edge of finish. The consultation had 8 responses from local residents, 7 of which support the continuation of this order, while the other areas only received 1 or 2 responses from the public. Surely this alone says that the order should stay in Woolwell, and the residents have taken the time to respond, unlike in other areas. What is the point of consultation and then ignoring those we represent? I cannot understand where the police stance on this comes from, as in an area like Woolwell, surely it was better to have than not. The police response cannot surely be made on police presence within the area, and if one was to ask residents when they last saw a police officer, the answer would be, I can't remember. It was few and far between. In my response to the consultation, one comment I made was not being to speak to Sean Sawyer, despite promises from him for a meeting. However, since the consultation, he has made contact and had his personal mobile so we can arrange a meeting, which is a positive step in the right direction. I thank him for this. I would ask that the decision be reversed and the order stay in Woolwell. What is the problem?
Right. Well, I think we've already agreed that we can't keep it because it's already gone. So to get us out of this bind, what I propose is that we resolve the 5 towns, but that we also ask that the plans of the areas be reviewed to ensure that they do portray the right areas. And that 2, that we review the public space protection orders for Modbury, South Brent and Woolwell.
Proposing that.
Is that all right? Is that wording all right? Thank you. So, well, we may not be able to, well, we could take the first 5 to the council meeting, but we can also take the second part to council. That'll have to be revised in the papers, which have already been published. All right. Okay. So, Councillor Bastone, you want to?
Well, I think Councillor from Woolwell has made a good point about Woolwell. And if any of you follow the Woolwell Facebook page, you will see numerous incidents that are not necessarily reported to the police. And I think she's quite right in saying that the order should still stay in place for Woolwell. I accept that we can't do that now, but I do have a question. When will the order for the fines that we're going to approve come into force?
It's approved by council next Thursday.
Right, okay. I mean, my concern was that we would have to wait for a further period and the summer would be over before the order came.
Yep.
That's why it's disappointing it's here now and not earlier.
I think one of the problems in Woolwell is that they're police from Ivybridge and the police never get there before the incident's kind of over and dispersed. So it is a real problem, these areas that are virtually left unpoliced, like a lot of the villages are too. So, right. Okay, so I think we've got a way forward. Councillor Birch? Sorry, Councillor Birch?
Yeah, look, I welcome the recommendation. Can I say one of the helpful byproducts of the public space protection order is it can be certainly used to resist what I would classify as antisocial applications for the 24-hour drinking The fact that we had in place the score of the order, the public space protection order, wasn't helpful in, I'm not saying totally resisting the application, but watering down the application. So one of the byproducts was not only dealing with antisocial behaviour, but also it was helpful in dealing with applications for the sale of
Thank you, Councillor Birch, because I objected to that application too. Right. Okay. Any more comments? Because if not, we'll go to the vote on this, which is going to be a bit complicated. I've got to take A to E separately because we've had to declare interest in our own wards and we can't vote, and otherwise we're not quorum. We can't do it because we're all affected by different wards. So we'll start with Dartmouth, and Councillor Bastone and Councillor Hawkins can't vote in this one. But the rest of us, are we happy that it goes forward for Dartmouth? Thank you. Ivy Bridge, I think we can all vote on. Are we happy on Ivy Bridge? This is all with the proviso that the plans are looked at again. Kingsbridge, we can all vote on. So are we happy for Kingsbridge? Thank you. Salcombe, I've got to sit out, but are you happy for Salcombe to go forward? Thank you. Thank you. And Totnes, I think we can all vote on. So are we happy that Totnes goes forward? Fine. Yes. And finally, the second recommendation that Modbury, South Brent and Woolwell are looked at again. Are we all happy on that one? Thank you. Right. Good. Well, after a bit of debate, we've got there. Right. So the final item on the agenda is the off-street parking order, which I'm just getting to below all these appendices. Councillor Baldry. Number 11.
I'm got a very brief introduction, which is really this proposed parking order is in two parts. It relates to the area around Arboretum, where we need to have an order in place in order to stop people stopping overnight in their vehicles at that end of Politan House. And the second part relates to the electric charging points, which are just outside here. We've got currently used by tenants and members of staff, but where we need to have an order in place in order to stop people staying there longer than is necessary to charge their vehicles. I may be asked the question, there is within the paper a suggestion of paying for parking, and we are all aware that there are currently parking meters here, so Mr. Brooke may explain further, but I was confused by that. I'm told it was necessary because it was a standardisation of the way of presenting orders.
Thank you. Any questions on this? Councillor Birch.
Did we have confirmation that the 3-hour period is not chargeable? I can understand the reason for the need for a ticket machine to establish when the parking started. But can you please have confirmation that there will not be a charge for staying there up to the maximum of 3 hours?
Not at the moment, Chair.
Mr. Brooke.
Sorry, just going to clarify something in the report, specifically around the parking. So there's no proposal for a parking meter here at Politan House, and we won't need to because it will be free. The reason there is reference to a parking meter in change is because we have one document for our parking across the whole of the district. It costs about £5,000 to amend it every time we do. So when we have to amend it, we just make sure we mop up anything else. And there's a slight tweak to something with reference to a parking meter, which basically will allow us to ensure that we can enforce effectively if people try and transfer their tickets from one part to another. That's the detail. But I accept that when you read the report, it kind of looks like talking about parking meters. So my apologies, that's my error. But there won't be a parking meter here. It will be free. And actually, with any reference to a parking meter, is actually to the technically parking order itself.
So the 3-hour period, to be clear, for the Arboretum will be monitored by periodic noting of the vehicles there as on-street parking is done elsewhere. Okay, fine, all right.
I'm sorry, I should have made it clear that this is also subject to a 3-week period of public consultation.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Any further questions or comments? I think Councillor Baldry, you can propose the recommendations in there. Thank you. Does anybody want to make any comments now we've got past the question stage? If not, we'll vote on it. Everybody in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you, members. That concludes this morning's business. Having concluded, members of the